I'm so glad you guys are here. Hope everybody had a wonderful 4th of July and fun times. And there was a little shaking going on, right? A little shaking going on. I know we prayed over Ridgecrest and Trona and all those areas over there. I did want to tell you guys also, we're a part of the Foursquare denomination, and so as a part of that, we have the Foursquare Disaster Relief team, right? And so they are actually working on helping in that area, and they're doing assessing right now just to see exactly what needs to happen and what needs that they can meet. And so if you want to get more involved with that, you certainly can. If you'll just go to the website, it is Foursquare Disaster Relief, and you can go there and learn more about it and how you can get involved. As we continue to pray, we will continue to pray, but if there's other ways that you want to get involved, please check that out. And we are doing that at New Life Church, and we are involved with the disaster relief from Foursquare and being a part of that as well. But I am glad you guys are here, because here in the month of July, we are beginning this brand new series all throughout the month called Selah. Will you say that with me? Selah. And it's amazing. It's a series that comes out of the book of Psalms. And as you guys know, this year has been the year of the Bible. And we're reading scripture every single day. And as we've got through the halfway point of the year, we passed that, we've read all of the Psalms. We've read all of them through, and so now we're starting again. And so this month, with that fresh start, we wanted to just kind of hone in. And so we're going to do messages all throughout the month of July, just based out of the book of Psalms. And so today, what we'll find is the word Selah is a Hebrew word. It's found 71 times in Psalms. And so there are like multiple definitions. There's a few different definitions of the word Selah and what it means, but really probably the most popular one and where we've landed on for this series that we are doing is the one about pause. That Selah means pause. And that if you're reading any of the Psalms, sometimes you will see that happen as you're reading. You'll see the word off to the side, right? It's a song. And so what it's happening there is it wants us to stop. It wants us to stop as we're reading this poem or we're singing this song. It wants us to Selah for a couple different reasons. We're going to pause and praise, right? We're going to praise God for what it is that we have just read or what we've sang. Or we're going to pause and reflect. We're going to stop there and we're going to reflect on what it is that we've just read or what it is that we just sang. And then the last is pause and meditate. That we're just going to meditate just for a few moments on what it is that we just read or what it is that we've just sang. And so through this month, what we're going to do is we're going to stop. We're going to reflect on the book of Psalms and see how these words apply to you and I in our lives. As well as this new season that we're headed into as a church as a whole at every campus at New Life Church. And so we want to begin this summer series just kind of pausing today to recognize, to reflect the power of gratitude. I don't know if you've noticed this or not, but grateful people are happier people. Have you ever noticed that? Like, that's the thing. And then even beyond that, when we start looking at what researchers have found when they study this, is that they're also less likely to feel regret. They're less likely to feel loneliness or anger or frustration or anxiety, disappointment, and boredom. Like, with all of the benefits that are involved in being grateful, then the question that we have today is, well, then how can we become more grateful? How can we do that? How can we grow this attitude of gratefulness in our own lives? Well, we're going to be looking today at Psalm 16. So if you have your Bibles, open up to Psalm 16, your mobile devices. Of course, we'll have it on the screens. It's also in your program notes there, the whole thing. And we're going to look at that together today. And what I think we all know is so often we just take things for granted, right? We just do. We take things for granted. And then every now and then something comes along and kind of shakes us awake. You see what I did there? Thank you. I appreciate that. Whoever that was. Brett, thank you. He's on my staff, of course. Of course he's going to laugh. Earthquakes can be unsettling, can't they? They can. And so what happens in those moments for me, if we Selah, if we pause, causes us to reflect, what I realize is just how fragile life can be. Like when I really Selah, when I really stop, I realize how important life is. I realize how important having a Savior is. In these moments where I'm able to stop and pause, and because it literally grabs my attention to all that what really matters and to all the things that I am grateful for. That's what happens. When we just begin to take things for granted, all of a sudden, something grabs a hold of our attention. But we don't need something to grab a hold of our attention if we'll just every now and then pause and do it for ourselves. And so today, for you and I, what we're going to look at is to grow in this lifestyle. We're going to read through Psalm 16 on this power of gratitude. And so here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to read this entire psalm out loud with me. Do you guys think you could do that, by the way? You think you can? Because I'm not talking about one verse. I'm talking about 11 verses. So I'm going to see if you're nice and loud. Maybe I'll even dip back a little bit and listen to you. All right? We're going to begin in verse 1. Are you ready? Go. Keep me safe, O God, for I have come to you for refuge. I said to the Lord, you are my master. Every good thing I have comes from you. The godly people in land are my true heroes. I take pleasure in them. Troubles multiply for those who chase after other gods. I will not take part in their sacrifices of blood or even speak the names of their gods. Lord, you alone are my inheritance, my cup of blessing. You guard all that is mine. The land you have given me is a pleasant land. What a wonderful inheritance. I will bless the Lord who guides me. Even at night, my heart instructs me. I know the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. No wonder my heart is glad and I rejoice. My body rests in safety, for you will not leave my soul among the dead or allow your Holy One to rot in the grave. You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasures of living with you forever. Woo! You did it! Can I just say, I'm really proud that I was able to do that and not mess up reading through that? We did it. David gives us 3 action steps on how you and I could develop a more grateful heart. Are you ready for me? Let's look through what these different ones are. If you're taking notes in your outline, here's the first. I have to acknowledge God as the source of all the good things in my life. That's where I need to start. And that's where in verse 2, David starts. He says, I said to the Lord, you are my master. Look at this. Will you just say this line with me out loud? All the good things I have are from you. In the book of James, verse 17, it says, every good action and every perfect gift is from God. These good gifts come down from the creator of the sun, moon, and stars, who does not change like their shifting shadows. Here's the truth. Here's the reality. I know that when you and I, when we are going through things that are very difficult, that are very hard in life, it can be hard for you and I to stay positive through those things. It can be very hard for us to be able to stay positive, right? Because fear comes in, worry comes in, doubt, right? We even begin to question God and if he's really there and with us. When we are in it, it is so difficult for us to stay positive. The flesh doesn't want to do it. It wants to yell out at the situation or whatever's happening in our lives, and it's so difficult for us to do that. To pursue peace in these difficult moments. And really what we have to recognize is it's a decision. It's a decision that you and I will have to make when we're going through it, when we're really going through it. It's a decision that we make. And so what I wanted to do for us today is I wanted to share with you an experience of our own Pastor Jeanette Mulhouse, whom I love so much. She is the executive pastor here across New Life Church. She's a part of our Northwest campus. And for those of you that do not know Jeanette Mulhouse, I think we have a picture of her up on the screen. For those of you that do not know her, because she is kind of more behind the scenes and all the things that she does, I just want to tell you, she is a powerhouse. This woman is full of wisdom and insight, and I love just sitting and listening to her. Decades of ministry experience. She has seen so many things, been involved in so much. She is an incredible woman and my friend. And so this story that she has of her experience in dealing with breast cancer, though very scary, as you would expect, is also very inspiring. And so I've asked her and her husband, Kevin, to write it up for me. Will you just write up the story so that I can share it with everybody? And so they did that for me, and they gave me the okay to go ahead and share it with all of you. So I would like to do that today. I'm going to just kind of tell the story through some of this. Some of it I'll read line by line because it's very powerful, some of the things. But she really opens up this letter with saying, because they've had so many people in their family who have died of cancer, that they were very aware. She was very aware that those genetic markers would be a possibility. And so then when she finally went and did some of those testing, she found out that it was true and that she did indeed have that. And so she knew that her surgery was going to be aggressive and extensive. She knew that that was the case. And so here's what she said. She said, I started out being really brave. She said, I started out like, we're going to be able to do this. And she had this incredible, positive, going attitude towards it. But then the surgery ended. Double mastectomy, lymph nodes in her right arm, a ton of them being removed, which resulted in many complications and became this ongoing problem and challenge. She said, what happened a little while later is the reality of this really hit me. And it became very, very difficult, more than I had anticipated. I didn't anticipate it, she said, that it would be this hard for me to face what I was facing. The very real recovery, the drainage tubes, the severe pain management, the loss of body parts really began to sink in. And this was very, very difficult. She talks about the surgery and the immediate aftermath itself was definitely a battle. It was incredibly hard. The long term though, like in the trenches, going through the healing process, dealing with chemotherapy, and all of the effects of that just knocked her down. She said, I was exhausted. She said, I had this terrible brain fog. I had very little ability to be able to concentrate and communicate. She said her immune system was shot, just gone. She had to be careful not to be around anybody that had any glimpse of sickness. She had to avoid them. She said all of that lasted for about 1.5 years, except for the immune system, which is now compromised for life. She says during this time, the support of her church family was vital and incredible. But she said the main thing that she did, the only thing that could keep her straight in being able to handle this, was she acknowledged that God was the source of all things and everything in her life. And she focused on that. And she was so grateful for her church family, she said, who would they would check in. They showed up in practical ways with meals and offers to help, being willing to do whatever I needed. Flowers, cards, emails came in to check in on me, to tell us that we were not alone in this. They checked in on me, and they also checked in on my husband, Kevin, to see how he was doing. And she just discusses what all of that looked like and how incredibly difficult it was. But just to try to keep herself focused on God as the source. And that's the only thing that I can draw from. She said, during this time, I felt that I had so little to give to Kevin except my gratitude. I didn't feel spiritual enough or victorious or inspirational at all to anybody else. I felt overwhelmed and stunned. My brain felt walled off, unable to process the whole picture. However, deep down, listen to this, her words, I trusted whatever was happening and knew that no matter the outcome, I was safe in God's plan, whatever that ending was. And then she added, because she knew that we were studying Psalm 16, she added verse 8 that says this, I know the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken, for he is right beside me. Oh, I love it. And through this very difficult and challenging time, Jeanette is able to keep her eyes on the Lord, and then she also says that she's able to focus in on the small things. And she's grateful for the small things. She's grateful for the little things. This is what we're doing in the month of July. In the month of July, it's Selah. We're going to pause. And our hope and our challenge is for every single one of us to be able to stop and pause and find the little things that you can be grateful for. There's so many things in our lives that we can be grateful for if we just stop. Like I was thinking, like there's little things that we could just thank God for, just little things, like a song. Like maybe there's a song that you're listening to that really is just resonating with you right now. Like for me, something that's happened to me recently that it's just like on my heavy rotation that I'm playing over and over again on my Spotify app is a song called Madness from a band called Citizens. Really resonating with me right now. Maybe there's an author that you love to read. Like we could thank God for that author and the gifts that they have. Right? Like I love Bob Goff. I love him so much. And so he wrote a book a few years ago called Love Does. He did a follow-up to it recently called Everybody Always. I love it. I love his storytelling. I love the humor in it. It's incredible stuff. I'm so thankful for that. We can stop and thank God for the restaurants that we like. Like it's like 100 for me, by the way. Actually, you know what? Recently, my buddy Philip Mendoza, he's here. He's a part of our campus. Took me to lunch one time at Pork Chop and Bubba's. Anybody been there? Which is a little barbecue place. It's a little barbecue place next to BHS. And I was like, whoa, this place is amazing. So I go to lunch there all the time now. I'm like, let's go, Jim. We're going to lunch right now, Pork Chop and Bubba's. I mean, that is what I love that place. We can thank God for these places like that. I went on a hike about a week and a half ago with my man, Steve Sanford. We went up to Mount Pinos and walked up to the Eagle Summit. And just hanging out, man, out in nature, just loving it. Great conversation, just getting out and about. I love that. We can thank God for those moments. It was a couple of hours, actually, because I kind of moved slow. There's a bit of an elevation there. But we can thank God for those moments that we have. We can thank God for hot popcorn while we're watching Spider-Man. We can thank God for cold ice cream while we're chilling watching Netflix, right? Like, my go-to is Ben & Jerry's Chubby Hubby, by the way, which is fantastic. Highly recommend that ice cream. We can thank God when we get to go catch a Dodger game, all right? Or Angel Stadium, whatever it may be. We can thank God for these little things in our lives. And this is exactly what Pastor Jeanette was doing. She is going through something incredibly difficult, very, very hard in life. And she said, I just have to focus in on these little things and acknowledge that he is the source. And so here's what I thought that we would do today. We're going to have some fun. You guys like having fun, right? I know you do. It's a 10:30 service. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a gratitude exercise, and I want you to get next to somebody, another person, get close to them, somebody that you can talk to. If you have to get 3 together, that's fine. And I want you to tell each other, I'm going to give you like 30 or 40 seconds. I want you to tell each other, we're going to stop and we're going to pause in the middle of the service. We're literally going to do this and see what it's like to just Selah. And you're going to stop and you're going to pause and you're going to tell people what you're thankful for. Just 2 or 3 things. Maybe it's some of this stuff. Maybe it's pork chop and Bubba's. I don't know. But just tell them what it is that you're thankful for. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Ready? Go. Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it. You guys don't want to stop. But, okay, you have to pay attention to me now. I'm back. I am so happy that you are so grateful for so many things. And that's what it means. You and I, we just Selah. We just stop. Pause. And acknowledge that God is the source of all the things in my life. And when we do that, you know what? When you wake up in the morning, there's 100 things that we could be thankful for before we go to work. So many things. And so we stop and we pause. Our focus cannot be on what we do not have. Our focus cannot be on that somebody's got it better than us. Like, that cannot be our focus. Our focus has to be on the good things in our lives, because every good thing comes from God. That's what we know. So I'm going to acknowledge God as the source of all good things. Here's the second one. If you're taking notes, I'm going to recognize the pleasant places in my life. The pleasant places. Here's what David says in verses 5 and 6. He says, Lord, you alone are my inheritance, my cup of blessing. You guard all that is mine. He says, the land that you have given me is a pleasant land. See, David's life wasn't just a cakewalk. Like, he dealt with some incredibly difficult things. There was a time in his life when the king was trying to kill him. While the king was trying to kill him, he just spent years on the run, just running for his life. He had his best friend taken away from him. His son rebelled against him, which eventually just tore the entire family apart. He went through some very difficult things. Like, all of these things happened in David's life. But you know what? Other things happened too. Good things. And that's what David chose to focus on. David chose to focus on the good things. See, you and I, we all have a story to tell. I have a story to tell. You have a story to tell. And all of our stories are full of good and bad. It's just we get to decide which of those that we're going to focus on. The good or the bad. It's the decision that you and I get to make. As we go back to our Pastor Jeanette Mulhouse story, I want to give you another perspective, and that is a perspective of her husband, Kevin Mulhouse. For those of you that do not know Kevin Mulhouse, he is an incredible man. He is the facilities director here at New Life Church Northwest Campus. And amazing, like, all the things of our facilities, inside, outside, all things maintained, kept up, all improvements, all of that falls underneath him and the team that he has, along with Laterno Landscape. Like, those are the people that keep this place gorgeous and beautiful all the time. And Kevin is the one that leads it. Kevin is going through this incredibly difficult time with his wife as she's battling cancer. And he writes, he says, all I could do is just try to stay busy. Like, that's all I could do. I just focused on what I could do to keep my mind, listen, on the pleasant places. Because it would be so easy for me to spiral down. He goes, so there were things that she and I did together, like a lot of them that she took the lead on, that now I had to do it. And so I tried to focus in on all of these other things to keep me aligned in the pleasant places of life. Because if I didn't do that, I would go off into the deep end, into a depression, and be useless to her. And that's what mattered the most to him. And he didn't want that to happen. He said, I couldn't face the what ifs, so I didn't allow myself to go there. You see that? He made a decision. He made a decision. He wrote in here that all of the things that I am writing are just little moments and highlights of what's been happening. He said, all of that stuff, he goes, it was so much more grueling and so much more messier than what I'm actually writing here. It was incredibly difficult. Kevin says, and this is true for those of you that know him, he says, I am a fixer and a troubleshooter by nature. That's who I am. He said, but, pause. He says, I had to surrender to knowing I couldn't fix this. And what became important through it all for him was coming to an understanding that worrying about the end result would not change anything. But leaving it all in God's hands would change everything. Isn't that incredible? And so just like David and just like Kevin here, all of us have these things in our lives that are beyond our control. We cannot control these things. Where you were born, who your parents were or are, looks, talent, all these things. A loved one that is battling a disease. Like, we don't choose these things to happen. They're beyond our control. So some of these things in our lives are pleasant, and some of these things are not so pleasant. And what you and I get to do is we get to focus on whichever we choose. Are you going to focus on the pleasant, or are you going to focus on the unpleasant? And my challenge for all of us is to recognize that God will lead us to the pleasant places. It's up to you and I to decide if we are going to recognize it and thank him for it. I cannot control what happens to me, but I can control what happens in me. That's the decision I get to make. We choose to see the pleasant places. We can be thankful for our spouse. We can be thankful for our children. We can be thankful for our friends. We can be thankful for our church family who loves and supports us. We can be thankful for a God who will provide peace and comfort even in the most extreme, excruciating situations. We can be thankful for that. I do not know the details of your life, but I do know this. There are areas that God is leading you to the pleasant places. It's up to you and I to focus on that and find it and stay there and not go down the spiral. So, how am I going to become more thankful? How do I develop a more grateful heart? I have to acknowledge that God is the source of all things. I have to recognize the pleasant places in my life. And then here's the third one. I have to look ahead to better days in my life. David said this in verse 6. What a wonderful inheritance. Do you know what he's saying? He says, what the future holds for me is even better than what I have right now. That's what he's telling us there. Optimism and gratitude go hand in hand. They do. In everything that we face. You ever notice in the Psalms, whenever we hear David speak of the future, he always speaks with optimism. Everything that he says. I put a few passages, they're in your outline, they're up on the screen. Psalm 23:6. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life. 48:14. God is our God forever and ever. He will be our guide to the end. 85:12. Yes, the Lord pours down his blessings. Our land will yield its beautiful crops. And then our psalm today, 16, verse 11. You will show me the way of life, granting me the joy of your presence and the pleasures of living with you forever. That's what he offers. David is saying the best is yet to come. And so as we get back into this story of Pastor Jeanette, I just wanted to show you a couple more pictures. Her in her recovery phase, focusing on God and the good things in her life. And then one thing that happened during this time frame is as she was starting to mix herself and get back into the mix with the staff and everything, there's this really popular picture that her and our lead pastor, James Ranger, took. Now the question is, who's who there? Can you tell? That's a great picture. I want to read the closing to you of Jeanette's story. Her words: because of the type of cancer I had and because of the genetic markers, they leave me in a high-risk category. I need to be cancer-free for 10 years before I can be considered cured. Every 6 months, I have to go through the tests again and wait for the dreaded call. But, Selah. It is underlined with the assurance that I will not be shaken. The end result is up to him, and it will ultimately be for my good because I cannot be removed from the palm of his hand. I walk in gratitude for what I've come through and with a confidence in knowing I can survive anything with him. I am excited about my future. I truly am. And as long as I am breathing, there's reason I'm here, and God has a purpose for my life. Isn't that incredible? Yes, it is so worth that. Today, God is inviting you and I to choose gratitude. That's what he's doing. To pause. Selah. To pause during these summer days, to be able to reflect on all the things and decide what is it that we are going to focus on. Can we do that together? I believe we can. Let's pray.